In this video, I'm going to take a look at TTARTISAN's new 35mm f1.4 manual focus tilt lens. This is the first time I've tried a tilt lens like this, so reviewing the lens has been an interesting journey of discovery that I'd like to share with you. The lens is designed for APS-C sensors. TTARTISAN also sells a full-frame 50 f1.4 lens. Personally, I like using the 35mm focal length on crop. It's a good standard length for walking around, and also for fast 50 style close-ups, and on my Sony a6000, it's quite a compact piece of gear. I'll start by showing you the design of the lens and discuss how it performs as a conventional, straight-ahead lens without the tilt. It's very competitively priced, so after you've played with the tilt, is it good enough to use simply as a prime lens at this focal length? Just a quick word about tilt and tilt-shift lenses. In the past, these types of lenses were expensive to make and expensive to buy, and were targeted at professionals who needed a highly specialist lens for changing perspectives, most notably architectural photography. Today, post-processing software enables us to correct distortion effects from lenses, or even create more distortion if you want. So one of the key questions I'll be discussing in this video is, can this TTARTISAN tilt lens do things that software cannot do? As I unbox the lens, which TTARTISAN sent me in return for an independent review, I'll briefly cover the optical specs. The lens has 7 elements in 6 groups, 10 aperture blades with a clickless aperture ring, and a minimum focal distance of 0.35 meters. The lens is reasonably small. It weighs around 350 grams, and it's a good size for my Sony a6000. A pleasant surprise. I thought it would be bigger from the photos I saw before it arrived. I'll describe the tilt mechanisms after I show you how it performs with no tilt. Each time I went out on a shoot with the lens to try the lens in its various tilt settings, I also used it as a straight-ahead 35 f1.4 lens. And it performs well, wide open and stop down. For example, I visited the Tate Gallery in London to admire the J.M.W. Turner paintings, some of my favourite artworks. The fast speed of the lens wider open helped capture more dimly lit scenes, and the centre sharpness was very good. Close up, these details from paintings are excellent. Outside, at longer distances, the lens also does well, with good details zooming into this laughing policeman. And the British Secret Intelligence Service will be quite satisfied with the rendering of their Thameside HQ. It's not the sharpest modern prime lens I've tried stop down towards the outer edges of the frame, but it's okay as a landscape lens. The colours and contrasts are fine, quite natural looking. There are nice sunbursts from the 10 blades stop down, with limited flaring. If you're into close-up shots wide open, this 35mm lens, equivalent to approximately 52mm perspective on full frame, definitely acts like a fast 50. I'm very impressed how sharp this lens is at f1.8. You're getting a lot of details without the soft flaring or ghosting you see with some other fast 50s wide open. It'll be interesting to see how much this changes as we start to tilt the lens. The bokeh is lovely and smooth. And the lens produces attractive bokeh bubbles. As you stop the lens down from wide open, the bokeh bubbles retain their rounded shapes for a long time down the stops. There's a little bit of fringing in very bright light or reflected light, but nothing dramatic. The flares wide open are fun with interesting conical artifacts. I found the lens is good for black and white photos too, such as this one, where I used the vignette from a full frame setting to create a more fisheye look. Those are my conclusions on the straight-ahead performance. It's good, and I'd be happy to use the lens solely for this purpose, even without the tilt. So let's turn to that tilt mechanism. The lens itself and the tilt mechanism feel very solid and well made. It tilts in 2 ways. Firstly, you can move the front of the lens barrel from side to side, to the left and to the right, and lock the lens into position with this screw. Secondly, you can rotate the lens barrel around 360 degrees, and again this can be locked with the screw. By combining these mechanisms in different ways, you can produce a variety of different effects, changing the point of focus and the focus plane. I'll illustrate the impact of these tilts, starting with the side-to-side front barrel movements. Here's the direction of the light passing down a conventional lens straight down the barrel onto the sensor. If you move the front barrel to the left, this is the new direction of light. It's going to move the focus point to the left and create a diagonal focus plane. To the right, and the focus point will move to the right, and the focus plane will also switch. I can illustrate the practical consequences of these tilts using this simple grid. The lens is focused on the star in the middle of this shot, i.e. the focus point, and in terms of the plane of focus, you can see how it goes horizontally across the frame, maybe curved a little towards the edges, but essentially horizontal. All the areas away from the point of focus and the focus plane are out of focus, progressively more out of focus as you move further away from those in-focus areas. Now I'll tilt the front of the lens barrel to the left, and you can see how the focus point moves to the left. And the focus plane is no longer horizontally across the frame, but at a diagonal, going from top right to bottom left. If I refocus on the original point of focus, then the plane of focus remains at the same angle, but notice that the blurred circles on the left are more blurry and larger than those on the right. This makes a tangible difference to the size of bokeh bubbles where there are bright out-of-focus highlights. Take this scene where the lens isn't tilted. The matching bubbles on each side of the candle are generally the same shape and size. When you tilt the lens to the left and refocus on the candle, then the bubbles become larger on the left. I should add that the impact of these tilts are much more apparent if you're using the lens wide open, so it's good that this is a fast lens. You get a more obvious impact across the frame. But in some situations, as I'll show you later, it may be better to stop down for more subtle effects. Move the front of the lens barrel across to the right, and the focus point moves to the right, and the diagonal plane of focus is reversed. It's now top left to right. Refocusing the lens on the original focus point, the diagonal stays the same, and now all the areas to the right are more blurred than the left. Back to the candle, and by tilting the lens to the right, you get bigger bubbles to the right. I'll show you some more examples of how to play with the size of bokeh bubbles later. However, it's not just the bubbles that are different. As we've seen, the plane of focus also changes with different tilts, and this is important to bear in mind, because when you take a photo with a left or a right tilt, different areas of the scene will be in focus. Take this photo, wide open. I've got the lens tilted to the right, because I wanted the plane of focus running left to right down the stripe on the Mini. As a consequence, part of the houses in the background are also in focus, when normally you'd expect things in the distance to be out of focus, especially in a wide open shot. It's not such a big deal here, but you do have to be mindful when you compose these kinds of images. Now let's see what happens when you rotate the lens. Clearly nothing happens if you don't tilt the front barrel at the same time. When you rotate the barrel and tilt the lens, the whole view shifts upwards or downwards in a direction that depends on where you've rotated the barrel to and where the sideways tilt is. If you point the camera back to the original central focus point, here's a simple guide to the effects created. If you tilt the lens to the right and you rotate the barrel to 90 degrees, then the plane of focus will be horizontal. Comparing the results to the no-tilt image, that also has a horizontal plane of focus, the tilt position to the right and 90 degrees produces more foreground and background blur, so you can get greater subject isolation with the tilt position. If you rotate the lens to at least 180 degrees and have the tilt on the right, then the plane of focus will be vertical. I'm not going to go through all the combinations of rotation and tilting, but in a nutshell, any combination between 0 and 360 degrees plus left or right tilts will give you a different plane of focus and something to experiment with. Armed with this information, you're ready to decide which combination will be best for a specific scene and a specific effect you want to achieve. I found 3 specific and quite different applications where the tilt mechanism worked particularly well, adding blur to stop-down images, Shots where you want to produce a miniature effect to your images, this works best wide open. And shots where you can use the tilt lens close up to create rather beautiful bokeh effects, producing even blurrier, smoother images with even bigger bokeh bubbles. Adding blur to stop-down images is very easy to do, with quite subtle results, given the right composition. Here's a photo of two large Italianate garden urns, taken stop-down with no tilt to the lens. There's a bit of out-of-focus blur, but not a lot. It's a generally sharp image. And here is the same scene at the same stop-down setting, with the lens tilted to the left. As you can see, the lens has retained its sharp focus on the nearest urn, but there's a lot more bokeh in the frame, and it has reasonably natural-looking blur transitions. Unlike the transitions in this shot, where I've opened up the aperture to wide open, again with the tilt to the left, I think this effect is interesting, but overcooked. So in this example, I prefer the stop-down blur, and I also prefer the tilted image to the non-tilted image. Clearly, the big advantage of doing these more subtle stop-down tilts is that you can get excellent sharpness, combined with a stronger blur than you get from no tilt, which is great for calming down busy backgrounds. This is a still, but if it were a video, I think the subject isolation caused by the tilt would give the scene a very appealing bokeh look, an effect used in TV sports broadcasts, for instance. A second fun use of this lens is to produce miniaturized effects. Basically, you're aiming to isolate some in-focus areas of the image and have the rest of the image out of focus, but not in a conventional way, because you're playing with the diagonals, not simply horizontal front and back blur. For example, in these art gallery photos, I've isolated one of the visitors and gone for quite a straight, vertically diagonal plane of focus, so there is blur on both sides of each visitor. In this one, I was trying to make the Volkswagen Beetle look like a toy car. Here I think the effect of miniaturizing a London taxi is helped by framing the road with the vignette from the lens on a full-frame sensor. This motorcycle is nicely isolated. The reason why the road is clear is that this outrider, plus some police riders in uniforms, have cleared the busy road, so a member of the British royal family could drive fast and straight through into London without getting caught in traffic, or having to wait and being gawked at by passengers in other cars. And here is the royal car. I didn't catch who was in it at the time. I haven't found a composition yet where setting the lens to produce a horizontal plane of focus works really well, but this photo has a certain, how can I put it, je ne sais quoi. In contrast, I had more luck producing eye-catching compositions by rotating the lens to 180 degrees and tilting the barrel, so there's a vertical plane of focus. And there's a distinct amount of swirl in this shot, again with a 180 degrees rotation and a tilt. Perhaps my most interesting series of photos were taken outside the American Embassy in London, under the watchful eye of heavily armed police. This is the straight-ahead photo, and here are some different angles from the tilt effect. Close up to your subject, you can still create that miniature-looking effect, but with even more action in the out-of-focus areas, with the right lighting conditions. The third area, where I very much enjoyed using the lens, involves creating different bokeh effects from different tilt positions, with the lens wide open. As we saw in my initial demonstrations, the lens can create even smoother, more out-of-focus blur and larger bokeh bubbles when it's tilted. With an MFD of 0.35 meters, you can get nice and close to your subjects. In this photo of a camera, close up, you can really see the distortion the lens creates, but wide open it's still nice and sharp at the point of focus. Here's a comparison of the bokeh produced wide open, close up, starting with this one, where the lens is not tilted. Compared to this one, where the lens is tilted to the left, the bokeh is even smoother, and to my eyes even more beautiful. And these big juicy bokeh bubbles were produced also from the lens tilted to the left, bigger and juicier than a no-tilt image would produce. You don't have to be close up to produce rather beautiful bokeh wide open. The way the lens shifts the focus point and plane of focus, depending on the position of the tilt, gives you more options for balancing the in and out of focus areas. For example, in this shot, simply by moving the lens barrel to the left, I'm able to keep the focus on the far right-hand side, but have a greater amount of bokeh to the left. Or with the same setting, I can put the subject nearer the center, and then you'll see blurred areas to the left and the right. I also had fun with this video as the guy behind me moved into and then out of focus as I filmed. Looking at edge sharpness for a moment, one of the advantages of the tilt lens is that its rendering towards the edge of the frame is very sharp stop down. Not surprisingly, as when the lens is tilted, it's not pointing at the center of the composition. In this shot, it's pointing closer to the camera on the right. Wide open, it's nice and sharp on the areas of focus towards the edges of the frame, but quite a narrow depth of field means it needs some precise focusing. If you tilt the lens away from the center and refocus on your previously central object, then in practice that object will now be towards the edge of the lens's field of view. In this scenario, I found the lens is still decently sharp on the subject in focus. Plus in this shot, you get all that lovely surrounding blurred fur. Now, returning to the question I asked at the start of the video, can you create these effects using the right software rather than buying this lens? And as I discuss this, I'll run a few videos taken with the lens. For stills in particular, you can recreate some of these effects using software by isolating the areas you want in focus and then blurring the rest of the image. In terms of using this tilt lens to correct perspectives in architectural images, I don't think it's as effective as, say, using a wider angle lens together with software adjustments, and that's why I haven't focused on this type of photography in this video. But there are some important effects you can't manipulate using software. Most notably, if you want to change the point of focus, you can't turn blurred areas of an original image into sharp areas. Something I've wanted to do with some of my original compositions, but it's too late once the photo is taken. And you can't create new bokeh bubbles, sizes and shapes. It's almost impossible to magic up bubbles where they don't exist on the original image, or realistically change their characteristics like you can with the tilt lens using software. This lens produces wonderful bubbles in its tilt positions, in stills and in videos. Good luck trying to create these effects in software. Rather than tinkering with images in software, restricted by the images already taken or filmed, I think it's a much more rewarding experience to create the tilt effects with the scene right in front of you, a much more natural way of composing images in real time. So there it is. I hope you've enjoyed watching these demonstrations and seeing some of the kinds of effects this interesting tilt lens can create. It's been a fun journey for me. I've been very impressed with the lens's performance. It's fast, sharp and intriguing. I'm sure there are many other creative images and videos you can produce with it. If you're interested in the lens, then I've posted an affiliate link in the description below, and if you use this link, you'll be supporting my channel. All comments and feedback will be most gratefully received, and until the next time, all the best.